This meeting is in session. Mr. Deshawn, Mrs. Ford, Mrs. Ford, please.
I was giving thumbs up to David to see if we were streaming. We are good. Okay, so this work session tonight is to help you understand a little bit more about the interventions that we do in each of our schools. I think we talk about things a lot. We throw around a lot of acronyms, but if you're not in our buildings, I think it's probably hard to understand. When we say we put a kid in intervention, I'm not sure if you really know what that means. How would you? You're not in buildings every day. So tonight, we're going to give you an example and explanation of what we're doing in each building to help kids when they don't understand a concept or a skill or whatever it might be. So it makes sense that we'll start with elementary and then just move our way up.
Yeah, I'm going to pass out. I just have a little, very small packet. I just kind of want to show you guys what it looks like for us. I'm not going to sit here and belabor every single point, but you guys will be able to tell what I'm speaking about. But Max, here's one I got one extra. All right, so basically, kind of before we take a look at the packet, I just kind of want to talk about the different kind of tiers of intervention and how it's very simple in the elementary building. And I think Brandon's really going to talk about how it's different at the high school. And then obviously the middle school, the students have a little more freedom and there's a little more wiggle room for some tier 1 intervention. There are 3 tiers to intervention. Tier 1, it's basically what all students receive. It's our ELA, math, U-Fly curriculums. Everybody is getting taught standards, lessons, skills, and if we do that, quote unquote, properly, if we're successful at it, right, that's what the students are supposed to learn. It's your 2 + 2 = 4 in first grade, whatever it is, and all students receive tier 1 intervention. Obviously, as we know, tier 1 intervention doesn't always go according to plan. Some of our students learn at a slower pace. Some students come in ready for kindergarten. Some are not ready to be around other people at all. So we have varying skill levels that we deal with. And that is when we start implementing our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. There is a difference between tier 2 and tier 3 interventions, but in the elementary school, it's really muddy. And it's muddy because we start teaching skills in kindergarten, and obviously we're working on a very finite number of skills, and we're trying to build through tier 1 intervention, and sometimes it's really hard to tell what a kid knows and what they don't. If you go into a classroom, you'll be like, this kid really he's not spelling this word correctly, and then all of a sudden another word pops up and he's spelling it perfect, right? They have varying degrees of skill levels. And so for us, at our building, we really deal with extremely skill-based standards, trying to teach students how to read, trying to teach them how to blend words with phonics, and that is what we deal with in tier 2 and 3 interventions. Tier 2 interventions can happen in classrooms and small groups. You might picture a teacher giving maybe a worksheet to students. They're working on it individually, and then off to the side she has 2, 3, 4 other students that are working on a skill with her, like one to one. That would be like a tier 2 intervention. Tier 3 intervention, lucky for us, we're a Title I school, and because we're a Title I school, we have Title I paraprofessionals that can either push into a classroom to take a group of students and reteach a lesson, teach it in a different way, and focus on specific skills. And then some of our older kids, we do what's called pull-outs, where they actually go to a totally different room that's quiet, and they can work on those skills that they really need to work on in order to get up to grade level. So that is kind of the different tier system, the tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 interventions. I know Ms. Horde and Mr. Gleason are kind of going to talk about how that looks a lot different at the other buildings, but for us, we do have to do a lot of tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. We have done a lot better job of tier 1 intervention, which is curriculums happening inside the classroom. I think that was a major change that we made, jumping on the new ELA curriculum. That I know it costs us a lot of money, but we're really seeing dividends pay off with that, and our math scores are getting better. But one thing we talk about with our teachers and with our office staff is when you have a tier 1 problem, you have way more students in tier 2 and tier 3. right? Because they're not learning it when they're supposed to be learning it. Or there's some reason we're not getting through these kids. And so when we, about 3 or 4 years ago when we took over, if you have 70% of your kids in 3rd grade that can't read, you can't tier 3 your way out of a tier 1 problem. It's impossible. There's not enough time in the day to pull enough small groups to catch them all up. So we've really focused on the tier 1 interventions, our curriculums. Our teachers have gone to a lot of PDs. We have an awesome support staff that really helps the teachers, and they know they have their backs. And so I really think that we do a good job with tier 2 and tier 3. But for my building, I think we just made such a jump in tier 1, but we don't have as many students that need the tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. Hope that makes sense. I know that's a lot of mumbo jumbo, and we deal with those terms all the time, so it seems simple to us. But does anybody have any questions on that? Kind of just
Who decides to push in and push out? Who decides which way you do it?
For the most part, it's pretty simple. If it's younger kids, grades K and 1, it's way easier just to push in with them, so we're not taking them out in the hallway where they have the time to, it might take us 10 minutes to walk down the hallway correctly. So really, that's pretty much what it is. Yeah. 2nd grade, we do a lot of pushing. 3rd and 4th grade, we try to push in and pull out. And really what we figure out is we try to go in and figure out, hey, because we're going to look at just a couple of kids just for examples. Does this kid really not try on this test and he really understands it? Because if so, he needs to be in a tier. He needs to be with the rest of his class. We don't want to, I hate to say waste a spot, but if kid A actually knows what he's doing, he's taking time away from kid B, C, and D. That we really, yes, he needs the help. So really, if you could just imagine, hey, let's take these 5-year-olds all the way across the school. Well, that seems silly when we can just go in their classroom and work with the teachers, and they're already used to kind of moving their kids around the classroom. And all the kindergarten teachers, as you'll see, we start our paraprofessionals in there every single day when kids come through the door, because it just gives a second adult in there to calm the kids down and kind of get them started. So if you take a look at this packet real quick, I don't want to bore you guys with this, but every student, when they come back to school, they take what's called an iReady diagnostic. And what we see where the kid is in terms of their reading skills and their math skills. Okay? So this particular student, you can see the diagnostic was on August 19th, so pretty much right when we got back to school. And this is the kid's ELA reading score. So you can kind of see off to the right, the phonological awareness, phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension overall. You can see where green, obviously good. This is a 2nd grade student already testing at a late 2nd grade level. Okay? So this student would not be going to tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. They're on track. We know exactly where they're at. Now, a lot of our 2nd graders, when they come in, we want them to at least be at 1st grade level. That seems silly, but they've completed 1st grade, so we would like them to have the 1st grade skills. So if they come in and as 2nd graders, at the beginning of 2nd grade, they test as 1st graders, that's okay with us, right? They have 1st grade skills, that makes sense. They went through 1st grade, that's awesome. Okay, so the first example, and as you can see, I blacked out the girl's name, but she's in the 96th percentile in terms of her reading score for the grade. So this is a kid that we would project to pass the test, doing a great job. If you flip the page over, same class, okay, you will see that this student is testing at a K level. Okay, this is a 2nd grade girl. So this student, based on her score, would be a kid that we would flag and send to intervention. Okay, a tier 3 intervention with specialized Title I paraprofessionals. If you look where it says overall reading score off to the right, you'll see grade K 416. This kid, 416, the cutoff for 1st grade is 434. So this isn't a kid that's completely out of it, but they are slightly below that 1st grade level. Okay, and so if you look off to the side, you'll see the phonological awareness. Grade K, it's yellow. All right? Grade 1. Phonics is grade K, red. All right? If you look at that off to the side, it's almost like a ladder for us, right? We look at phonological awareness, If you don't have those skills, it's really hard to get the phonics skills. If you don't have the phonics skills, it's really hard to get the high frequency skills. If you don't have the high frequency skills, you can't get the vocab. So it's almost like a ladder for us. So for this particular student, we would place this student in an intervention that works specifically with phonics, with our UFly program. They'll get a double dose of phonics. They'll work with a group of probably anywhere between 4 to 7 other first graders that are also struggling with that same skill. That would be the intervention this kid got, because they have a first grade phonological awareness. They have a first grade high frequency word. They have a first grade vocabulary, but they're struggling with phonics. So for this student, if she improved her phonics score, right, she'd be at a first grade level. It's very simple. And if you look down at the bottom of this page, on the bottom right, you'll see that this is page 1 of 25 for this one student. Okay, so you're just getting this is a literal snapshot. The other 25 pages detail specifically what she's struggling with, and we can really hone in on that. And that is what our Title I paraprofessionals are for. So I'm just kind of showing you guys the difference between, hey, this is a kid that our Tier 1 is working for. This is awesome. She's ready to go. Probably can pass the iReady test right now, the iRead test right now, ready to go. Second page is a student. You can tell the difference in her scores, and that would be the way that we would decide what intervention to put her in. Question?
This information was gathered as a result of a test,
Yes.
a written test beginning of the.
Yes. So this is a test that is through iReady, okay? I'm not going to steal anything from Miss Hort because she's going to talk about something else. But we will be transitioning to a different program for our 3rd and 4th grade next year. But that is because the state tells us we got to do with the iLearn checkpoints. And she's going to describe all that, so I don't want to bore you with that, but she's going to be telling you specifically how they're already using them. However, I will say one thing that's pretty cool about this is kids get a chance to take this exact test 3 times. So the first time they take it, we have what's called the summer slide. As you can imagine, not all of our kids are reading a book a day, or they're not hearing, they're not working on skills with parents. So we expect a little bit of a slide when they come back. But this tells us where they're at on this specific date, and then we put them through intervention until about a week before Christmas. A week before Christmas, we will have them take the exact same test and see if they grew, see if the intervention worked. Now they take a little test along the way to see if the intervention's working, but we'll see what they test out of. And then at Christmas time, I take that data, I create a PowerPoint for you and say, hey, here's all the stuff we're doing, and here's what it's looking like, and all that stuff. And that's what you see in January when I start working on those numbers for you, basically.
Is this information shared with parents as well?
It is shared with parents. We also every kid basically kind of has a folder with all this information in it, with the growth. And parents are talking to teachers on Class Dojo and other people as well. And we obviously have a literacy specialist that keeps teachers and parents kind of connecting with the same language so that they understand some of this stuff, so that they can work on it in class.
I think we're a year and a half into the new reading program and comprehension and all that.
Yes.
So what is your take on, like this kid's only in the 2nd grade, so they would have been probably way behind when we started.
Yeah,
Can you tell the difference? Can you start to tell the difference in
absolutely.
kids
Yeah.
catching up?
Yeah, for sure. And I think there are some pitfalls with any new curriculum that you have, but based on how our teachers feel about it in general compared to the other one we almost chose that Kokomo has and they hate it, I'm very happy with what we did. The big thing for us is what we're learning is our kids are very limited in terms of their experiences, right? And so even if a kid can read, sometimes the test asks them to read passages they don't understand. Like one, I can't really go into specifics, so I'll just use the World's Fair. Like a couple of years ago, they had a question about the World's Fair, which is obviously different from the Greentown Fair. But our kids hear the word fair, and they're like, zipper, there it is, elephant ears. So they're answering these questions based on that. They think they know, but they don't know. That's a vocab issue, right? That's an experience issue. That's not even testing whether they can read. It's testing what they know. And so what I really like about our new ELA curriculum is that it kind of gets students out of their comfort zone, a lot of pictures, a lot of experiences, and our teachers are challenged to kind of create projects. I don't know if you see some of those videos online. We try to put some videos on where teachers kind of make things, vibrant for students and more experience and hands-on stuff. We're sending them on more field trips now. We're doing a lot of stuff with it. I think that's a big reason we're seeing a jump in test scores. They just understand what's being asked of them a little bit more. So, and that's it for me really with interventions. The last 2 pages are just so you can see how we schedule our day. If you turn to the very multicolored paper, a lot of this probably doesn't mean anything to you, but in yellow are the specific intervention times. And I share that with you. If you want to come check out what intervention looks like, feel free to come in because it's scheduled to happen at the same time every day. I will note the question you might have is why is there no intervention for 4th grade? The reason is because we are working with them and trying to do more push-in for math, which wouldn't be considered a specific intervention time. We also have some different reasons why we've scheduled it like this because they help with some lunch coverage. To be honest with you, our title paraprofessionals, we rarely have them all because sometimes they're subbing, which is, I'm sure, something you guys deal with on a daily basis as well. So we have to work their hours in a very specific way. That's why there's some gaps in the times. So if you take a look at that, you'll see exactly yellow is great for intervention. You can come in and check it out. I would encourage you to do that because it's really cool to see in small group settings. And then the last page is simply, those are our literal Title I paraprofessionals, and that tells us where they're at on a minute-to-minute basis. And you can literally see, okay, they're starting in K intervention, and then they go to K push-in, so they get push-in support, and then you see when they're on their prep, and you can see when they're pushing into specific classrooms. So that kind of just breaks it down for you, and we place, each of them have a specific skill that they really focus on, and then we send students to them for that specialized skill. So it's very cool. Broken down by skill level. So I highly encourage you guys to come check it out. And it's very basic. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it works for us. And it just gives our students an opportunity to grow. That's all we can ask.
You guys, I know I've asked this before, but you guys talk, particularly you and Heather, so that Heather can say, hey, a 5th grader's coming in, I see this or that, or other things that we need to be doing better down there with the 4th graders, the 3rd and 4th graders.
I mean, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I definitely think that, I would say that she obviously doesn't see some of the same things that we see, whether that be sometimes some of the kids I'm like, oh, you'll really like this kid, and they go over and they're holding terrors for her. Or the opposite way, this kid's causing us a lot of issues, and she's like, I don't see this kid at all. So what I'm saying is I think the island checkpoints that she's going to be talking about are going to help us kind of bridge that gap a little better because we are using iReady right now. She is using island checkpoints. Island checkpoints are new. We're transitioning so that we're both speaking the same language and our kids are speaking that same language for intervention. But right now, we're using a different process. Does that make sense? It's not making sense.
Well, I still don't understand why we can't all get on the same page.
So, like she's going to talk about, the island checkpoints are extremely new. We had already paid for this program. This program was what we taught our title paraprofessionals. This is what we work with our literacy coach. Okay? Starting next year, we're not using this anymore in 3rd and 4th grade. We're going to be using what she uses, island checkpoints.
That makes sense.
Yes. So it's kind of up in the air. We go to all these meetings. They talk about how we're going to use all this different data. And they kind of just started spitting data out to us after we did our first checkpoint. So we didn't know what it was going to look like. So to me, we were seeing great gains with this. So I wanted to stick with this for as long as possible while I learned the island checkpoints. So that's why we made that decision. So I have Mrs. Crouch and Mrs. High. They're really looking at the checkpoints and seeing where we overlap so that we can make this transition as easy as possible. So I say all that because I think next year, the kids that will receive intervention based on island checkpoints, which is what she's doing this year. So we are not the same this year, but next year we will be.
And I think more succinctly to answer, I think maybe where I felt like you were going with this, we do communicate at the end of the year, like, okay, these are students coming to us, this is specifically where they are. Like we are given copious amounts of data from the elementary that help guide us in terms of immediate placement when those fourth graders come into our building. And so, and we do have conversations, like we've been very candid that, and Jake didn't shy away from this, we know our students struggle in math. We know that is a great area of concern. And that's an area that they are working very hard to start addressing. And so, like, we've been very open and having those conversations to know across the board, you know what I mean? Brandon knows our kids struggle with math. Like, these are open conversations of what we need to do better to help kind of start lessening these gaps.
And I think for, like, I don't want to take a whole bunch of time for everybody because we'll eventually go over all this data again. But I think really the thing is, we didn't really know what the I-Learn checkpoint data would look like, to be honest with you, because last year it was completely different and they really didn't give you any information at all. And so I was like, am I going to trust the state to give me all this information when they already didn't do it one time? Or am I going to trust what we know works? That's why we stuck with this year. But we are working to put that under data so that we can be speaking the same exact language as the middle school.
I think too, one thing that is becoming better is for years we just focused on the intervention. We gotta do the interventions, but we avoided probably the most important part, which was tier 1. And that was the original instruction that you give children. And I think in the elementary especially, we were just not there. We were doing the wrong things. And so now their tier 1 is correct. So that means that the interventions will follow correctly because you've done the proper work beforehand, and now this data matters. If your tier 1 is poor and the kids don't care and they don't try, well, their data doesn't mean anything. You don't know what they can or can't do. But I feel like now we've really dug in and we're getting better at tier 1. We can still have a long way to go. But that really is the key. The tier 1 sets up everything else. So
Our tier 1 is improved. Now we have less kids in tier 2 and tier 3. Now that's improving because you can really give that one-on-one attention to students that desperately need it, whether it be for a learning disability they may have, or they're just simply not getting it and need to hear it and be taught a skill from a different person or from a different perspective. And that's easier to do when it's one-on-one or in a small group.
Yeah, but we've just got to get the assembly line going, and everybody's got to, I mean, we're just killing Heather.
Yeah.
I mean,
I've been for years.
She puts in more time than anybody else probably. And they're just getting beat up from a discipline standpoint, from an educational standpoint. I mean, like I said before, you guys should have the toughest job, grooming them, right? Brandon should be sitting in the office like Red Auerbach, smoking a cigar. I mean, if we get it right.
Are you saying she hand for me?
You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the transition how it should work. But the middle school is just jacked up, and I feel so bad for her. And we got to do something to figure that out. They're in between you two guys. And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
When are we going to start? You know what I'm saying? When are we going to reap the benefits?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've been talking about this for a long time, and we think we've got the right thing started in the elementary. We've got to start seeing results because it's just a disaster over there. In my mind, it is. I'm not speaking for anybody else.
She listen.
Yeah. All right. Jump right
And I take that for us. I'll start with. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Tell me again how parents find out about this.
We just share it with them. We can share with them via Class Dojo. We typically call and let them know that they're in Title I interventions and talk about what that looks like with the parents. And they also receive documentation in the mail.
Okay, so you said we share it in Dojo or we can call.
Yes.
Okay. If you share it in Dojo, do you feel like they're really looking at it?
We can see if they look at it and view it.
Do you feel like most people do?
I feel like they look at it, and some of them will reach out to see how they can help their student with their skills. But I'd say probably at least 50 to 60% never really ask how they can help their student. So it does fall on us, to be honest with you.
So which is a whole different role.
Yeah, that was the basis of my question. You can get the parents to help. Well, I know some cases it's
useless.
Yeah, we have meetings, we invite parents to come in to kind of understand the testing better, and the intervention problems. And we just had our literacy night, which we had like 45 kids come, which doesn't sound like a big number, but it was like double what we did last year, or 2 years ago, so.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. I'll start with kind of where we just landed on tier 1. We know for our kids, our teachers struggle when we talk about tier 1, just basic instruction. Our students struggle when we are doing a guided practice. Teachers working through a problem or something on the board that students simply won't even pick up a pencil and follow along. I was in Miss Oliver's class last week, and she told her class, she said, I'm going to tell you right now. She says, I told you this, if you don't do it, but I'm going to tell you again. She says, if you don't pick up a pencil and start writing the answers that are given to you on the board and put them on your paper, that paper will be a 0. I'm giving you the answers, that paper will be a 0. And there was groaning, there was grumbling. There were still students that sat there and did not copy what she was writing on the board. And so when we talk about apathy and trying to target tier 1, and that's why it's we feel in our building super passionate about just trying to find ways to motivate children to just simply do the work. That's all we're asking. If you do the work, that translates into likely a better grade. That translates into likely better learning. You know, if you don't practice, you don't play. You know, I mean, I'm a sports person. You got to practice to get better. And so we feel like with our grade reward program that, and appreciate the support of that it is so very important for kids to be talking about grades because they have to start practicing. If they're not practicing, we just can't help them. And that's where we're kind of struggling with right now, is getting students just to practice. And so that's where we're our tier 1, that's where we're currently at, is just trying to get students to simply copy work.
Is there any format or any way that, I know we don't have enough staff probably, but when you see that there's 2 or 3 that didn't, to address them then, like at the end of class, or to somebody else and say, is there a reason you didn't pick up your pencil after hearing that? You know it's a 0. In other words, get in their head, why are you doing it? Why aren't you participating?
I'll do it when I get to high school.
So, I just...
That's the answer we get. I'll do it when I get to high school.
It's too late. If you don't do it now, it's too late.
Yes.
That's correct.
Yes.
They don't understand
Yeah, I just had that conversation today with Terry. She said, I tell, because she has 8th grade math, she goes, I tell these kids every day, I translate no work, no credit, no diploma. I'll do it when I get to high school. That is 100%.
It doesn't matter in middle school.
Yes, we hear that too.
I've heard that in
No! No. So that's where we're working to try to incentivize and find ways to reward students, to make them know that this matters. And sometimes if we don't play in the field house, or sometimes those things will matter to students. And so just working hard just to try different things. That's all we can keep doing is just try different things. So I will start, obviously you understood from Mr. Light, obviously through the tiers. When Mr. Deshawn and I were talking, you said we're going to do this. So he had kind of said, can we really talk about what checkpoints are? Because obviously you heard Mr. Light talk a little bit about this. So last year we piloted. They piloted in their building, we piloted. Like he said, the data was non-existent. Yeah. And so we really were just looking at the test is what we were doing because they provided us with nothing. So what I have given you is just kind of a very quick summary of what the checkpoints are. And I can just kind of briefly hit it. Obviously through English and math, there's no science or social studies for the checkpoint. So we are approaching the end of checkpoint 1 window. There are 3 total throughout the year. They do not count towards the end of year, what we traditionally know as the April, May I-learn. So that these scores, not that they don't matter, they don't count towards that. So the checkpoints that we are currently taking, we are not using I-rate because what the state has figured out that previously they were doing the formative assessment grant and they were paying millions to schools. Schools like ours, we applied for the iReady, for that platform to use. And so the state was giving us grant money to be able to pay for that. Well, they also have figured out that they paid billions of dollars for, I don't know if they figured that out, but I think they have, but they paid billions of dollars for iLearn. So now they're going, and we've cycled back around, that those of you who've been here long enough or know, we've cycled back around that we used to have incremental assessments throughout the year that led to the big one. Iowa Basics is what we took when we were in school. I'm probably just dating myself. But, okay, yeah, if you want to raise your hand and join me, great. If not. But, that was an incremental exam that we took throughout the year. So we've cycled back around a few years later. We're doing the same thing again. So that's really what the checkpoints are for those of you who know Iowa Basics. And so the checkpoints are giving us the data of what we need to be working towards, or sometimes what we're trying to push, even enrichment. Intervention can be remediation. Obviously, we know in math, we have a lot of target areas that we need to hit. So what we're doing, and I gave you, and feel free to read through the sheet. It kind of tells you a little bit more about what the checkpoints are. Again, no science or social studies. That will still be a summative at the end of the year. So right now it's just for English and math. And so kind of the front page, read through it. It is computer adaptive, as you see there at the top of the second page. So computer adaptive meaning that it's adjusting to, did I get it right? It gives me a little bit of a harder question. If I got it wrong, then it drops me down to a little bit of an easier question. And so kind of tells in that first bullet point, the checkpoints are supposed to be quick. We have some students who are approaching 90 minutes on their checkpoint assessment. So when I say supposed to be quick, they are still untimed, just like the end of the year summative test. So each checkpoint has around 20 to 25 questions. There's no writing. They call that a performance task. There's no writing portion where the students actually have to type out essays or short answers or even long answers. They're just all, like I said, multiple choice, kind of computer adapted. Students still have all the accommodations. And so what we do, kind of that middle of that second page, we take the checkpoint data, and I've just given you an example of a student. You see at the top, so the first piece of data that you have, it says opportunity 1 at the top. And then, hopefully the second one, second one says opportunity 2. I'll have to look at mine for a second there. So with this particular student, the math teacher, this is a 6th grade student. So the math teacher, they give us basically an outline. Here's what we're going to test on checkpoint 1. So they're telling you, you teach to the test. For years, teachers have said that. Just tell us what kids need to know. And we've always said for years that we just want to teach students organically, but that's not what the state wants. The state wants, and teachers have had to pick for years, and Mr. Light was a part of this as a teacher. You look at the standards for a particular grade, and the state basically for iLearn was telling you, or even iStep, that was telling you, pick the standards that you think are important, you think are important, you think are important, and we'll see how you do. It was a gamble. That's all it was. And so when we look at this, so we could have 5 of you seated here, all of you teach English, and we either all have to agree on which standards in Vegas we hope will be on the test, because there's no way we can dial in on all of them. There's way too many. We're not going to get there. So we either all have to agree that these are the standards we need to teach, and let's hope we're right, because if we're wrong, that was a bad gamble, right? We lost on that one. And so that's what they were asking teachers to do. And so this is, in my opinion, as long as I've been doing this is probably one of the better things that the state of Indiana has done. They've said, we're now going to dial it in for you. Really good help, because we tell teachers, begin with the end in mind. Look at your assessments, know what you expect your students to learn, and then teach them, and then give them the assessment. So the state has now given teachers a map that says, this is what we are going to test on the first checkpoint. So we have taught those to our students. So we took the first opportunity, we give them the test, and so you see for this particular student, when you go to the second page, it does tell you, because again, computer adaptive, so this student had 6 questions, so 83% of the test, 6 questions that were below proficiency. And then 67% or 9 questions, because of the computer adaptive part of this, was at approaching. And then 20% or 10 questions was at proficiency. So the overall rating for this particular opportunity was approaching proficiency for the student. So when we look then onto page 3 and page 4, it specifically tells the teachers, this is data that they can use, it specifically tells them that on standard, which you see the academic standard there in the second column, it tells you the PLD or the performance level descriptor, that this student either checkmark got it right or X got it wrong. So we know we can look at this. Some teachers like to look at it in this format, and they can print all these off by student. Or they give you, and I didn't even come remotely close to printing out the spreadsheet, they have a spreadsheet full of all of this data for this particular student. So all this data that you see here is also on a spreadsheet, which is much nicer because if you're a spreadsheet person, you know you can manipulate that. You can take what you need. We can then group students. For example, this student, which we wouldn't put him, I guess I should pick one that he got wrong, but so like you say the first one in the pink, it was 6NS1, has trouble identifying negative positive number that represents equality in a real world situation. I guess actually they got that one right, so bad example there. But teachers can take the X's of those standards and group everyone who got that standard wrong. So we can pull those students into what we call, or what Mr. Light also called, is a Tier 3 intervention. So now we can't get everyone. So if we have to get everyone, we have to go back to a Tier 1 instruction. This is going to be whole group class instruction. Because a bunch of my kids missed this standard. I need to reteach that as a whole group because so many kids missed it. What we try to do is take kids, part of it too, who have to have a little bit of want about them, that I want to come to a MAP intervention. I want to be pulled out because I want to do better on this. So we take those kids, again, Tier 3, we pull them into, it's our 7th period class, it's 30 minutes every day, and they work for about 3 to 3.5 weeks with the math teacher or the reading teacher, depends on what intervention that they really needed. And so at the end of that 3.5 weeks, we have an opportunity to test that student a second time. Now we can work on this all year long. They have one chance at opportunity 2. So opportunity 2 can be given clear up until April 10th on any checkpoint. So you have all year to remediate. So they give you some flexibility. You have to take opportunity 1 by the end of the window. There's 3 windows. Opportunity 2, you can remediate all year long and then give it. So if we chose to remediate on this particular checkpoint in February, we can still give this student the second test to see if what we did worked. You see, he's still at proficiency on his second opportunity. We pulled this student into a 3.5 week remediation. But when you look at the difference in terms of the computer adaptive part, we did show some movement. Not quite the growth to putting him at proficiency. Oh, sorry, I looked at his name, sorry. It's been marked out his name, but it is a young man. So you see that there was some growth. He's still 83% of the questions were still below, but there was movement with that. That on the first one, he had 6 questions below, I think I'm looking at these right. Second one had 12. Like when you look at his approaching, he did improve in the approaching area. And he did improve on some of the questions in the at area. So while we didn't move the needle clear to at proficiency, which is going to be really hard for our math kids, let's just be honest. Our math kids struggle, number 1, with confidence, and then they struggle, number 2, with skills. That we still have students who may not know multiplication facts. We have students who may not know 7 times 3 is 27. Did I get that right? I was just seeing if you were paying attention. Good job, because it's 21.
If you miss out on the second one, we got a problem.
Well, darn, I should have tried harder.
Should've went there.
So you see with that. So this particular student, he doesn't have a chance to take another test for checkpoint 1. Like either we have to give another assessment, or with other students who maybe we haven't gotten an opportunity to get to, we can still test them if we want to or need to.
So Heather, if we can only give opportunity to once, how do we know from November 5th to April 5th whether it's improving or not?
We have to find a different assessment for that. So we can use, for math, we can still use iReady because our math adoption is iReady. So we can still assign students particular standards and have them take that assessment. So we're still lucky with that. Our English uses some different methods like Common Lit. There's some different things that English can do to test, or it just has to be a teacher-derived
Why did they only
assessment.
let you do it once?
Well, we can't give all the answers away, but you can try. Yeah. It's kind of like, I think they can see, like, staying at the free throw line, you don't get to keep shooting until you make it, and then win the game.
Well, they're gonna use that data too in the school.
Oh, this data is?
Well,
So this is not like your test.
It's
Your
not-
test is,
Yeah, no, you're all
your test is math.
we have a summative test as well. We have a summative at the end of the year.
But your I learned checkpoints, you said didn't count.
Working up to them, working up to them.
The checkpoints don't count against the student or the school.
Correct.
Right.
They're just for us to have that.
They're ready for us to use that
This is
data.
not like that.
Wait, what's not like what?
Opportunity 2 is not like that. Because why couldn't you do it more than once if it doesn't?
Yeah, you're one and done.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense.
That's kind of my problem with it, right? Like it's harder for us to track it that way. We're trying to figure out a way to do it. And it sounds like they're trying to do the same exact thing. They're trying to figure out, navigate how we can continue to get interventions and then pull kids out when they do understand.
Right.
That's why I'm using the iReady right now, because I feel like that works, and that's kind of where we're at. But that's why I think we're both working on that so we can make it work for our students.
And we also have some students that we're pulling into what we call intervention, but we're also doing enrichment with those students because we're trying to also move the needle with students who are getting it but don't quite got it. You know what I mean? Like, so those students still, because sometimes we want to tend to focus on the students who are they're completely not getting it because we want them to get it. But then there's also students who they just need kind of a little, and then it's that aha moment, and then we realize with those students that, like, I can do math, right? I just gained confidence, which we see is our biggest hurdle in our building. I suck at math.
So why try?
Exactly. I can't do math, so why try? And that's the mindset. So we know that those students who are kind of trying and are giving us a little bit of grit, we're going to help you, and you're going to walk out of there. And we've had some students who find kind of that bubble of air that I got this. So, and that's what we got to have.
Do you ever have you thought of having students help other students?
Yeah, they try, but those school kids get chatty.
Yeah. I was better in high school, perhaps.
Yeah.
So Heather, I had talked to Steve a bit about, we know the kids aren't doing their homework, right? I mean, that's obvious. We don't want to go back to that stupid idea where we put signs out everywhere saying, hey, come to Taylor because you don't have your homework. What, do you talk with other principals or our teachers get in groups and talk about how can we do a better job in the classroom to get them motivated? I mean, what can we do to where they're learning during classroom time and they're not getting homework, we don't give it, but so I don't want to say force them, but how can we motivate them to want to?
We just met last week on our 30-minute time that we have on Tuesdays. We just met as a staff last week, and we developed a spreadsheet of things that we can just generating ideas. And we talked about that last Tuesday, saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? What can we do? And
do we talk to other schools or other teachers or other principals or?
I mean, our teachers definitely talk to other teachers, and a lot of our teachers are just looking up stuff, you know what I mean? Same as everybody else. They're on social media and they're seeing things and they're trying things and
that's part of PBL. That's part of the reason we want to do that, because you can bring real world concepts in where you can say to a child, you will use this and this is how, rather than I'll never use that. What do I care about it? I'll never use it, you know? But there are ways to build into projects things that they will do. And hopefully that it's more fun to do a project than to do a worksheet.
because it's relatable.
Yeah.
For the most part, you're dealing with the same parents that Jake dealt with. How do you feel they're responding to these results? Any different than he did?
The parents can see these results. I did send home a parent square message that gave them the link. That you have to call for your individual specific code to get into your child's, obviously, account.
Really? Wow. Yeah.
For heaven's sake.
Wow.
So you see the back.
That's fine.
Oh, yeah.
Well, part of it too is, and I'll be honest, one of the kids that I mentor up at Elwood Hayes, the teacher said, "Coach, can you help him at lunchtime with some math problems?" He had 5 problems, and I said, "Yes, ma'am." So I helped him, and she called me that afternoon. She said, "Hey, stop by tomorrow." And she said that the answers are wrong, correct, obviously, but she said the method's wrong. So it was like 36 times 10, so I just did it like normal, right? Well, I went in and I said, "Well, how would you do that?" And I mean, it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. 30 times 10, and I put in a box over here, it said 300, and then 6 times 10, and put 60 in a box over here, and then added the 2 boxes together. And I said, that's the dumbest thing I've ever done. I mean, who's coming up with this stuff?
That's why they're confused. They
That's
don't know how to do it.
exactly right. Yeah, just we got parents that can't help.
Right.
I mean, that's the other bad part. The ones that want to help can't help because it's just ignorant. I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that I know math teachers in our building, so when kids say, "Can you help me with math?" I say, "Yep, right here." And we walk straight to the math room.
Yeah, I know. It's silly what we've done with educational.
It's 5:52 right here, Brian's.
Yeah.
Brett said, "Give me 8 minutes, go."
You're gonna speed read.
No, I don't think better. You good?
I'm good. I think I'm good. I don't know.
I know what the standard is. We use a lot of papers, right, with digital. So I shared 2 documents with you, but with the essence of time, ours is a little bit different in terms of when it comes to the high school, whatever Jake has done leads into what Heather's done. What Heather's done, I have to mimic it so there's no shock. Our kids from knee-high to grasshopper all the way up, they need that structure, that routine, the exact same thing, so they know building to building, classroom to classroom, it's the same. So from that, we've adapted a lot of stuff at the high school. So our interventions, we're going to talk about special focus areas, what that exactly means. I'm not going to give you data. My number 1 data is I better shake more handshakes at graduation this year than I did last year. That's my number 1 data. My number 1 goal is for Mr. Moon. I told this to all the parents and freshmen in my speech. Mr. Moon, to read your name, you need to shake your hand. End of conversation. How we get there has to be unique to every child because our kids are all unique. They come from other schools for a unique experience at Taylor. That's how we operate. So yes, we went up 21% in our SAT scores for at proficient. If our kids get the Algebra 1 skills, they can do 60% of the math on the SAT. Okay. We also went up. I have our Island and Bio. We were at 39% last year. Here's the last 3 years scores: 19%, 18, and 10. So whether I know Heather's feeling pressure, but what they're doing and working is coming here. Bottom line is more time of kids in a classroom. Even if they sit there and don't pick up a pencil, this or that, they're at least absorbing something, and those kids will do that. So, talk about academics. I break our interventions down between two categories, academics and behavior. As simple as that. Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, as Mr. Light said, Tier 1, that's everybody. Tier 2, a little smaller. Tier 3 is that 10 to 15% range or 5% range. So how we operate here is Taylor High School, all schools around. Our number one drive is academics. If a kid can't meet a test score to graduate, we look at we look at attendance next. So we need to make sure they are in the seats. Credits, we track, interventions are off track. Mr. Rubin and myself, as well as we're knocking on the doors. You know, we're probably the only school around, I would challenge us that we go to someone's door, knock on the door, say you have 3 minutes to get dressed and come to school with us, or X, Y, and Z has to happen for the state code. Kids will come and do that. Behavior, restorative, trauma-informed care, all these trainings we go to, college and career readiness, everything in there. So as we're going through, what makes us unique is we're at small schools. We know the story. We know this person had this go on. We had this. So how can we go about there? Our relationships are key. I know that from the elementary, all up to middle, all up to the high school. Flexibility, being a smaller school, we can get creative schedules. We have clinical recovery through Admenum. We can be the career center. We do all these different flexibilities to find out the kids' pathway. What are they passionate about? As you saw, once they're passionate about something, they're going to latch on. As I told you, my number one goal is to shake more hands this year than I did last year at graduation. Community, we have the ties. All this work-based learning is coming, 100 plus hours. I talked to the other area school principals, where are we going to get this? How are we going to get these hours? I want every kid to start on a track with a seal, whether that's enrollment, employment, enlistment. We need to start on a seal versus trying to make it up. So we need to get ahead of it, and we are with our project-based learning, the community ties, going out there. And then our staff, we always connect. So I'll just show you here quick. So school-wide, this is for all. I break down our interventions. We don't need all this data and numbers. Number one goal, get kids to graduate, get kids at school. Okay? We look at prevention, positive culture, strong relationships. We accomplish that. These things will happen, and they have happened. So academic side, standards-based instruction with differentiation. This is great with project-based learning. You've invested a lot in us. Project-based learning is basically take the standards, be collaborative, tie a community piece, make it relevant, get that engagement, get the grade, graduate. So it's simple as that. What are they passionate about? We have something pretty interesting right now with our social studies is linking with art, making ceramic copies, like all these things. They're interested in that, but they're learning all the skills. They're learning the history. They're learning the ceramic skills and vocab at the same time. They're just doing it a different way. And that different way is okay at Taylor. We have to be unique to get every kid to graduate. So we go through here. Cross-curricular projects, formative assessments to guide instruction. Heather talked about that going forward. Study skills and organizational strategies. At one point, probably the most hated man in Howard County, when I said, if you have this grade and after you're going to go to study tables, if you miss practice, this is what happens and you go. Our study tables are now, some of you that probably just walked in, you may attend our study tables from time to time, but it works. You now have goal sheets and folders. What are you doing? Why are you in here? How do you study? How do you take notes? How do you actually do something? By the time you read a chapter for a test, if you master those skills, you can probably write the test yourself. So they're working on that. So Mr. Weeks and Mr. Murphy, as well as myself and Moon, do a great job at that. After school tutoring we talked about, and then we have WIN, flexible time for students to catch up on learning. What's great about after school tutoring now, we have so many leaderships on campus now for schools, whether it's the Key Club, Student Council, the Titan Leadership Academy. Those kids come and tutor after school now. It's part of their hours. It's part of the requirement to get courts at graduation. So that's how we're going to do it academically. School-wide literacy, we're going to initiate and launch this now come Monday, is if you have nothing to do, you're reading a book. Staff's going to read a book, Abby's going to walk around and sit in the classroom and read with the kids. The 30 minutes of reading will go a long ways because as I opened this up with, the SAT numbers went up great because the English teachers found the formula. It's the vocab, it's the reading, but it's doing it all the time. Don't take an off day on it. So that's really helped. As far as behavior then, we go, our PBIS, I actually stole it from Ms. Ford. I said, your assemblies, all you do, that's awesome. We did our first one in October. We had kids come down. They're excited to get certificates. That little recognition pushes them to try that one. Not asking for A's, not asking for B's. Get your credits to graduate. That is what you need. So we have our 5-star story, you build the relationships, clear expectations. I think our handbooks have been great with this. It's clear from building to building what's exactly happening. There's no wiggle room. This is what we're doing. That's an intervention because we're all doing it consistently. School-wide recognition, we talked about, student of the month, titans of the month, just anything to get a kid motivated. Man, I may not get B's or C's, and you're going to hear some students of the month today. They're not the A's, but they found a way to excel, and that needs to be noticed. Not always taking care of the top and worrying about the bottom. It's what about the middle that does the right thing? They put their paper in properly, but they're not getting seen for whatever reason. That can wear on you. If for 3 years you're not getting recognized, that wears on you, so why try? Well, we're done not seeing everybody, and this has been evident. So assemblies, competitions between grade levels. We even do attendance competitions, and we do ice cream Sundays. Paula, don't worry, it follows the smart snack calculator. We have it all mapped out. But it's those little things. They get each other accountable then. Okay, we all need 95% attendance. Let's do this. How are we going to do this as a class? Go through there. Win again. Grade level checks, daily check-ins. So that's what everybody is getting every day. So now, what do we get a little bit more for that smaller group? Well, we have algebra lab. Now, we know these kids are not, they didn't come out with all their math skills, so why throw them into a class that's fast-paced? They're already going to take the F. That's not smart. We know that as educators. So we created a math lab. It slows down the skills, breaks it down for them. We have reading labs, all those things to try to stop the problem. If we know with the new graduation pathways, you need, Algebra 1, geometry, and 4 math credits read, then why don't we focus on those credits that are on the SAT? Algebra 1 is a huge part of that. So, schedule adjustments. Kids not working this, we can move their schedule. We need half days, getting your 5 classes, figuring it out. We also do credit recovery through Edmenum and Plato with Mr. Ostapa, study tables in there, check-ins in the resource room. We have amazing resource teachers, amazing preparers, amazing SPED education teachers. Go check in. Loosely lingo, if the high school had binders that every kid knows, I can go in, I can see their goals, I exactly know what's going on and the kids know. Goal setting and progress monitoring. Attendance meetings, like I said, we'll go knock on those doors. I mean, it happens, you have 3 minutes to come, or you're going somewhere else. That's somewhere else they don't want to go. Conference with parents and home visits. We have these re-engagement teams for that, that 10% plus. Chronic absenteeism, we know it's a thing, the state's talked about it. We're not afraid to talk about it here at Taylor, so we're getting ahead of it. Behavior side here, go a little faster. We have behavior skills specialists, counseling, our 4C services, behavior contracts, mentorship programs. That's with, I believe, the high school kids you guys asked about, is there mentorship programs? The high school students from some of my leadership teams have actually met with Ms. Horde about coming down and doing 8th grade. How are we we need to start partnering with 8th grade before school's out to show them this is how we transition, this is how it's going to be, so that I'll fix it in high school mentality. That's not real world, and a lot of freshmen are figuring that out right now. That's not how it works. We had to have conversations where this far in, you're already off track of graduation. What are you going to do? How are we going to fix this? It's fixable, but you have to put in the work, and then the parents are like, they start to understand it. Tier 3, these are more of our, intense ones. So, Ms. Wickham, you guys last month, she's our district ELA or EL teacher record, so academics, ILPs, IEPs, ILP meetings. Are we following everything? Are we making sure every kid has every chance to succeed? So much so that I know Heather and I have both believed it when they do those project-based learnings. They need an admin signature plus a special ed signature to make sure these are fair for every student to get the credits, to graduate and shake more hands. When in resource room, we go through collaboration with special ed, modified curriculum or pacing. We work at all that. We look at the IEPs. Hey, they need extra time. That modifies their pacing. All these different things come into play. Just regular meetings. I know some more intense ones. We have services come in and counsel students. Hey, if you're not right in the frontal cortex, you're not going to be able to sit down and think about math right now, or history, or English, or any of these things. So what can we do there? Behavior plans we have, wraparound services, partners, social workers come in and talk to our kids, safety, crisis plans when needed. Like I said, all hands on deck. We believe massively in mental health at Taylor. All of you have supported that. We're not going to shy away from it, but we need to continue to make sure every child has everything they can to succeed, and that is not shying away from what's in front. I know that was fast because Jake went 45 minutes.
Hey, whoa.
But the bottom line is interventions are very different at the high school, meaning we don't have the testing stuff all the time. Their testing is, are they getting their credits? We run credit checks. We do all these things. But at some point, it's clearly working. We don't just jump 20%, 30% in some subjects. We have less kids in the office. You know, I know there's some teachers here, hopefully they would admit the halls are less, crowded. Kids are where they need to be, on time, be in school. If you don't pick up a pencil, at the very least, at least you're listening to it and you'll remember something. But any questions there? Like I said, my number one thing with data is, are we getting kids to graduate, period? And what roadblocks are we removing to help them? Anything?
No, not for me.
You guys get all the questions right now?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll admit, kind of old school thinking and my past law enforcement experience, when you guys said interventions, my mind went way off, way somewhere else that we just can't deal with today. But thank you very much. I appreciate it.